If it's okay with everyone, I want to leave my mask off just because it gets warm, right? So how's everyone doing this morning? Doing well. So as we've been talking, IRAs throughout the last couple of months, there was some delays there, unexpected delays within start and finish the presentation, but here we are. This is the last one, and we're gonna put it all together, right? So I want you to think of when you were a kid and you were maybe sitting in your living room, you were sitting at your dinner table, and you were gonna solve your first puzzle, right? Think about that for a minute. And you're, as a kid, you're like, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how to go about it, and a lot of emotions probably go through your mind. Maybe frustration, maybe you're mad, a lot of different emotions that you can be going through when you're doing your first puzzle. And there's a lot of pieces maybe, and you don't know how to go about it, how to start. And that's kind of what we're gonna talk about today. Maybe that was us sitting at the dinner table and we had all these puzzle pieces, but we didn't know how to go about it. We didn't know how to start, where to start, are we gonna make it to the end? A lot of uncertainty, right? And that's kind of the same process with anything new that we're taking on, anything new that we're learning as far as products, services, things that we're going to talk to about the member. And I know a lot of, a lot of the team was kind of expressing that the conversation piece was kind of a little bit of uncertainty there when they're speaking to members. And so I'm going to break it down, and I'm just going to share really just 2 questions that are going to open up your whole perspective and just kind of, maybe like the kid, maybe we're frustrated, but as we've been building, you kind of feel a little more comfortable with the conversation, with the knowledge, and that's kind of going to help you to continue to, build on that and be able to just simplify it. Like kids, when you don't know how to do it, the puzzle, maybe your dad, maybe your mom, maybe your older sibling came next to you and was like, hey, in order to start the puzzle, you have to start sorting things out. You have to maybe put all the the colors on, the red ones on one side, the blue ones on one side, the green. And once you start separating things, maybe this task doesn't seem as daunting, doesn't seem as scary, and you kind of have a little more purpose and a little more structure, and you kind of have to know, and you kind of know where to go from there. Ooh, it's not doing there. Oh, because it's not powerful. I had it all animated, so sorry about that, guys. So as far as, if we think about it as a puzzle, when we start, moving the red ones together, the blue ones, separating the puzzle, the first thing you want to ask the member, where are the funds coming from? And I think we touched on this on the previous meeting, but this is what's going to open up your whole perspective. Where are the funds coming from? And really, there's just 3 categories that it's going to fall under. Either an IRA, it's coming from an IRA, an employee retirement plan, which could be a 401k, 403b, 457b, or mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and annuities. That's pretty much the 3 categories that it's going to fall under. And like I said, when you're sorting that puzzle, okay, now you know IRAs, now you know employee retirement plan, or stocks, bonds, annuities, mutual funds, that kind of thing. So if it's coming from an IRA, either a traditional or Roth, there's really only 2 types of transactions that's going to fall under. The first one is going to be the trustee-to-trustee transfer. And as we know, members don't have access to the funds. It's coming from the other institution to the credit union. We don't see those funds. So those transactions, we might not even see at the branch because they're starting this with the custodian of the plan, and back office will be the ones to receive it, either a letter in the mail, a check, however they do it, or electronically. The second one is going to be the 60-day rollover. And in this one, the member does have access to those funds. And as we all know, you can do one of those rollovers every 12-month period. What questions do you guys have on that?
So usually the 60-day rollover is what we're gonna see in front of us.
Yes.
Because sometimes we'll see the trustee to trustee.
Yes.
Where they can request for us to initiate the paperwork here.
Correct.
But it's rare.
It's rare, but sometimes members do come in here first because they don't know what the process looks like.
Yeah.
And they'll say, hey, I want to move my IRA from whatever institution to schools first. You can get that process started, and don't feel like you have to get on the phone, right? Like I already told you, we want to empower the members. You don't feel like you have to sit here for an hour or 2 on hold trying to get a hold of the custodian to kind of get that process going. But what we can do is we can establish a simple accumulation IRA. If the member kind of doesn't know where they are yet, what they want to do, then accumulation IRA is always going to be that like safety net. All they need is $10. Open it, whether it's Roth or traditional. They should be able to know that if it's pre-tax or after tax. If the member's here, why not get that process started? Open the accumulation. Once they start the process, you can put notes on the membership. You can do it through RG comment or just comments on the IQ tree. Hey, member's expecting or is going to initiate a transfer from XYZ bank. And that way IRA services is not kind of like, well, what do they want us to do with it? And you kind of want to, be able to advise the member in that sense.
And then we can let the member know, after the funds are here, then you can decide how you want to, what plan you want to put it in, what term you want to put it in, right?
Exactly, yeah, so like I said, you want to keep the conversation as simple as possible. You don't want to, if sometimes we don't feel comfortable with all the information, just think about the members. They have no clue. They don't even know what IRA stands for, right? Sometimes they just hear, hey, I need to open a retirement account. And it's like, well, what kind of a retirement account, right? And then the second part, the second way it can come in is an employee retirement plan, which we've discussed in the past, 401ks, 403bs, 457bs. And that's gonna fall under really just two types of transactions, either a direct rollover, which we know member doesn't have access. Same thing, it's from institution to institution. And then indirect rollovers. Member does have access and it must be completed within 60 calendar days. And like we said in the last meeting, the custodian of the plan is gonna set 20% for federal and 2% for state taxes. So if the member is coming in and they want to, I was told I have 60 days to roll over this money. And once again, this is coming from an employer retirement plan. You have to let the member know, you know what, the custodian of the plan set aside 20% for federal and 2% for state taxes. If you don't want to be penalized on that amount, or even penalized or being taxed on it, you have to put that up front from your money, from your pocket, and roll over the full amount, which would include the funds that are being held by the other or by the custodian of the plan. Does that make sense? Joanne?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I've been trying to keep up on it, and I've been doing my studies.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much that's kind of the biggest thing when members come in. As far as the conversation piece, we want to be able to advise them. Like we said, members, in this kind of scenario, we talked about maybe members got let go from their job with the whole pandemic, and they're receiving a check, they don't know where it's coming from. We want to be able to advise them. And really, like I said, the first question is, where are those funds coming from? That's what we want to find out. And if they're 403B, 457B, if you guys didn't already meet her, she's our advisor. Her name is Brittany. If you hear 403B, 457B, even if the member thinks they want just to put it in an IRA, I would say that's like a referral, a very easy referral. You know what? Before you make up your mind, we do want to educate you. We do want to make sure that you know where you're getting yourself into. And if they're still a school employee, obviously. If they're not a school employee anymore, then we can't really help. But if they're still a school employee, I'm going to sit you down with Brittany. I'm going to set up an appointment, what day works best for you. That way she can walk them through what is available. And usually those plans are going to be, might have a better rate of return than what we are able to offer with the IRA, just an IRA certificate here at the branch. And then the third part of where it can fall under: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities. I don't know if you've heard of SEP IRA. There's also simple IRA. You don't have to know what that is or anything like that, but if you do hear those words, that's a slam dunk referral to Christian. Once again, if you don't know him, you haven't met him.
What do you look like?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think he has a beard now, though, so don't confuse you. Maybe.
He is scheduled to come back June 1st.
Oh.
So we'll see him sooner than later.
That's exciting. So if you hear any of those words, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, like we said, we don't have to know, and we really shouldn't be discussing that with the member. But if you hear any of those things, if the member knows or the statement they have in front of them has any of those words in it, please refer him to Christian, and he'll be able to offer more options. Once again, if he's not able to offer something that the member is comfortable with, he'll definitely refer him back to the branch, and that's where we would step in and just really advise the member depending on their situation. And so when you, the first question was, where are the funds coming from? Once you already know that, like I said, it's just a two-step process. I'm just making it very simple. When do you plan to access these funds? That's the second question, and that will open up even more, right, as to what they're looking to do. So short term, if they're looking to do 0 to 3 years, then I want to refer them to Christian because that's a longer term. 0 to 3 years, we'll get to that. Medium term, 3 to 5 years, and this is just kind of something I came up with to kind of keep in mind. So medium term is maybe about 3 to 5 years. Maybe the member has that much time, or long term, 5+ years. Really, what I mean by that is maybe they'll say, "Oh, I don't plan to access these funds until I retire." And so if that's what they're saying, that kind of gives you, okay, so now that I know where the funds are coming from, then what am I going to advise the member? It's really that simple. I know sometimes we get caught up with like, I don't know this, I don't know that, and we're learning, right? We're still learning. There's still questions that I have, sometimes that come up that I'm just like, I don't know, and I'll refer to the SOP. You don't have to know everything off the top of your head. That's why we have those resources. But you do want to feel comfortable with the verbiage, with all that, kind of what we've been building on, the types of transactions. And like I said, the second question, when do you plan to access the funds? From there, if we're talking something short term, 0 to 3 years, you automatically want to start thinking accumulation or IRA certificates. That's going to be the best bet for the member, because once again, for an investment, Christian usually says 3 to 5 years or something longer term. That's like a perfect candidate for a referral. If they want something short term, maybe they have plans to remodel their home, maybe they want to pay off a vehicle in a couple of months, or they're going to buy a vehicle, or whatever, family activity they're looking to do. Short term, you want to start thinking accumulation or certificates. Medium term, IRA certificates or investments. So 3 to 5 years, maybe maybe I have 5 years. Well, then that's a perfect opportunity for them to sit with Christian. And once again, you don't have to get into too much detail. It's more of just bringing awareness to the member, letting them know you do have more options, and putting them in front of Christian. More than anything, we want to educate the members. Maybe this time around they'll decide, no, I'm going to put it into a IRA certificate or an accumulation, but they already have that knowledge of, in the future, if something like this were to happen again, I know that I can reach out to Christian. I know kind of what investment options are available, and maybe at that point they're ready to take on, a little more risk. If they're younger, obviously, if they're older, they might not have the time to kind of to put it in an investment. But if they're younger and maybe we're educating them at an earlier point in life, then that's how we're going to be setting them up for success. And then long-term investments or retirement planning. So depending, like I said, if it's a 403b, 457, that would be a perfect referral for Brittany. Or if they don't know what they're going to do with the money, they don't have any immediate plans. Sometimes they'll just say, no, I don't know if I don't plan to do anything with it, or maybe I just won't touch it until I retire. Then those conversations you want to have is just referrals to Christian as far as long term. Any questions up to this point? And so yeah, just pretty much that didn't come out how I did it. So pretty much like I said, where are the funds coming from? As far as building that puzzle, when you get to that point, you already sorted everything out, and now you're gonna execute, right? Now you're gonna start building that puzzle. You know where to go from there. You wanna make sure that you're asking, where are the funds coming from? That will help you sort out all the information that's being thrown at you from the member. Like I said, sometimes the members don't know what they're in for, but if you just take the time to find out where the money's coming from, that's gonna let you, okay, so if it's an IRA, then I know it's either the trustee or a 60-day rollover. What are they looking to do? And that kind of narrows it down. If it's coming from an employee retirement plan, it's either a direct or indirect rollover. And that opens up more of that. And like I said, when do you plan to access these funds? Those two questions I think are gonna be key. I just wanted to make it really simple, something that, sometimes we think of conversations and we wanna like make them so memorable maybe, or we have a really high expectation, but really the simpler the transaction or the conversation is, the members are gonna understand that better. We always talk about bank jargon, like we don't want to, use all these words, all these terms, because the member doesn't know what that means. They don't know, what's an IRA, like, we wanna make sure that we're, educating ourselves first to be able to educate the member. And so, like I said, once you are able to sort the pieces out, once that fear is gone, because maybe you're a little more prepared now you know the basics, the terminology, And then now you have your process down of how you're gonna execute. I'm gonna ask these questions, and I know what the member's here for. I know what the member wants. Then at that point, we're able to complete that puzzle. And maybe before we did feel frustrated, we did feel scared, but now, like this little girl here, she finished the puzzle and she's happy, she's excited. And not only us, but the member as well, right? That's what they're here for. We're here to advise them. And if we're able to make those connections, be able to really find out where the money's coming from and what they're looking to do with it, whether it's short term, medium term, long term, then we're able to advise the member and go from there. That's really all I had as far as content. I really wanted to open it up to any, maybe you've experienced a conversation where you were not comfortable. So maybe we can all, as a team, kind of break that down and kind of, maybe give you a little bit of guidance as far as how you can approach it another time. Does anybody have an example, or when they did, or maybe a time where they didn't feel as comfortable with the conversation?
So I had a member who came in and he said that his parents had passed away, or his parent had passed away, and so he was getting his parents' IRA. And so then I called IRA Services because it sounded to me like it was going to be an inheritance IRA. And so I asked him, and he said, no, it's not. And he was very adamant that it's just a regular, traditional IRA. I said, okay. So I called IRA Services to where he wasn't accepting my explanation of it. He wasn't accepting Ira's explanation of it, but he accepted it at the end. And so at the end of the conversation, he was just kind of like, well, I guess it's an inheritance IRA, but I don't think so. And so that was kind of like the end of our conversation. And so it just ended like on a sour note because that's not what he, I guess, wanted, but that's what it was.
Okay.
So what makes an inheritance IRA an inheritance IRA?
Well, yeah, pretty much when it's coming from someone who passed, right?
So it's not a type of IRA,
Yeah.
it's the situation.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, you inherited it, so it's an inheritance IRA, you didn't start it, you didn't build it from scratch.
Right.
So therefore, it's an inheritance IRA.
I think it's
Simple.
still
And he
traditional,
wasn't
right?
accepting that.
It's still a traditional.
Well, it
IRA,
still
but
could
it's-
be traditional.
He's inheriting this traditional IRA.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So maybe I guess, when the way you want to put it is kind of like Danny just said. Oh yeah, I mean, it is a traditional IRA, but since you are receiving it from mom,
It could
dad.
be traditional or wrong,
Yeah.
depending on how his.
Yeah, so,
parent
but he was
built it.
saying it was, it's just a simple traditional. So you want to just, maybe at that point you could agree with him, yeah, it is a traditional IRA, if that's what you're seeing, right? And then just let him know, but since it is coming from someone else, since you were not the one who established it, it is considered inherited. Or if if the time permits, I know we've been very busy, but if it's not too busy, and if they have a statement, you can try to call. I know sometimes they don't really want to give information, but maybe they can just clarify as to what type of plan they would be, like coming from the custodian of the current plan, if they can just kind of explain to the member, if he wants to hear it from someone else. But if you know what it is, then just, empathize with the member. Like we said, they don't know what they're here for sometimes. And just being able to let them know, it is a traditional IRA, it is a Roth IRA, but since it's coming from someone, who gave it to you, since they passed, then it isn't inherited. Any other scenarios?
Well, not a scenario. I just had a question. Is there like a particular reason why the contribution limits for traditional and Roth IRAs are different? I feel like traditional is a little bit higher. Right?
No, they're the same.
Oh, they're same, like 7,000.
6,000, and if you're 50 or older, it's gonna be 7,000.
Oh, so it depends on age.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
No,
the
6,000 and then 1,000
6,000
catch
for
up.
any age, yeah, and then
And
if
you
you're
have
over
to be
50,
older to
then you could do
qualify for
another
the catch-up.
1,000. And those numbers are set by the IRS. We don't really have control over that.
Oh.
Every year, the IRS pretty much sends that information to financial institutions. This year is going to be X amount. This year's like it's been the same for like 2 years now. I think it recently got changed, maybe like 3 years ago. But really, we don't know. It's just every year, the IRS will set those limits.
What's the new, tax deadline, May,
May 15th.
huh?
May 15th.
May 15th, so we may see members coming in to open IRAs, because when they do their taxes, sometimes the tax man said, you need to put this much in an IRA, so they come in and they say, okay, I want to set up an IRA. So we may get, an influx right before that deadline, which is,
a week
Friday,
now.
Thursday?
A couple weeks from now.
Right?
what, May
7th,
15th?
8th.
A week from today.
Okay, a week, yeah, a week from today, exactly. So we may see it this coming week, people coming out at the last minute.
Does anybody have any other questions,
I have a question
scenarios?
really quick,
Yeah?
sorry. So I know what Christian
Don't be
and
sorry.
Brittany, thank you. I know what Brittany and Christian, they can open and stuff.
Uh-huh.
On this side services, you guys are able to open what, like accumulation IRAs or regular traditional or, and Roth IRAs?
Mhm.
Is that what you guys can open on this side?
Traditional Roth, accumulation is just kind of like a stationary account.
Mhm.
It applies for either traditional or Roth.
Okay, so, okay, got
Like
it.
a holding.
Like a savings.
Right,
account.
yeah.
Yeah, temporary. What other questions do you guys have?